I want to welcome my guest for this hour, trial attorney Kelly Hyman. All right, Kelly, always great to see you. And I think it was a brilliant move by the state. We know that yesterday the defendant testified on her own behalf, in her own words, self-defense. And then as rebuttal, the state called this officer to get in the interrogation video. First of all, how do you think this will work for the state?
The state has to prove their case and prove every single element of the case. The state has done a very good job telling a really compelling story about what happened and what happened to this man. But what I keep asking myself is, why did she bring a gun? Why would you bring a gun? Like, these thoughts go through my mind. Well, why did she bring a gun? Why did she follow after him? Ultimately, it'll be up to the jury based on the facts and evidence to make a determination, but the state has done a good job.
I think they have too, Kelly. And I have to tell you, I thought that the defense did a really good job when they put her on the stand, and Hannah Payne testified about what she did for a living, the property management, the collecting rent, having a lot of cash. All of those things, I think, told the story about why she carried a gun. But I agree with you. Why did she go after him? I think that's the issue in the case. Kelly, court has now started. Let's get right back into the courtroom. You haven't missed anything. They're adjourning they're starting again after lunch.
Presentation, I'll have to be in my office. I need him there, not here, so I'll proceed. If someone does walk in, I told them to just hand the paper.
Benny's here.
No, that's it. I couldn't get the power on my computer at the office. Somebody tried to frag it last night or something. So I've asked them if they get it to work to print it and bring it to me. So if they do, I just told them to give it to the lady in the back.
Okay.
And it would be not on the screens.
Okay. All right. So yeah, we can just let you listen.
And so, Kelly, just as we were discussing, as we're waiting for them to come back in, they're standing, the jury is coming in. If you were making a closing argument for either side on this case, what would you want to focus on?
Well, if I was the state, I want to focus on the elements of the crime and what the state has proven by the evidence. And from the defense standpoint, to poke holes at that and to show another situation that happened, so in fact that it wasn't her fault.
And I do think that it is the burden of proof for the state. I think they've done that. Is it self-defense? Let's go back in.
Before we broke for lunch, I indicated the process that would commence after lunch, and at this time, the state is going to begin its closing arguments, and the defense will have an opportunity to do so as well, and then the state will have the final closing argument. So I'm going to ask them to do that at this time.
The state will reserve.
Okay. All right. Attorney Tucker.
Ladies and gentlemen, 2 weeks, finally get here. And as I stated as we began, that the judge would instruct you on the law, the judge would instruct you on the roles, and the judge would give you guidance to take all that you've heard, all that you've seen, all that you've been through this last week and a half. And I told you that I would try to get as much evidence out so you could see the full picture. Because as I said, when we're dealing with the verdict, you must honestly be seeking the truth, wanting to hear more, wanting to see more, wanting to see the full picture of what happened, to hear what really happened, why this occurred, how this occurred, and why not. So as we began, we started with the opening. Of course, I gave you a little story out there to try to keep you interested. And I think we got more to talk about than that bullseye. So I want to go through what you saw here today, because the judge is going to say everything I say, and everything the state says is not evidence. So you to disregard it But I don't want you to disregard what I'm saying, because I'm not trying to say is evidence. I'm just trying to be a highlighter. From all the evidence we were able to get out, I just want to be able to highlight it and say, this is what I felt was important. This is what I think you would want to know is important. And then it's up to you to decide. Was it important? Was it not? Was it something that I needed to see? Was it not? So we started off fully understanding that the state has the heaviest burden in the world to prove all this evidence of what they have put in the indictment beyond a reasonable doubt. You probably heard things like probable cause, which is a very low threshold. Preponderance of the evidence of one has 51%. They win. And then reasonable doubt being the highest standard out there. And the judge is going to read to you what reasonable doubt is and what classifies something that is reasonable or not. And I'll let her go ahead and do that. And I won't try to waste your time with that, but I will start at looking at it as a heavy burden the state had to prove. And they brought up the first witness, and it was Mr. Herring's sister. And she got on the stand, and she showed a picture of her brother, God rest his soul. And she talked about how she knew he had diabetes. She did. She's a sister. But that standard is very high, beyond a reasonable doubt. Why wouldn't a doctor come in here and say, I have been there, I've tested him, I've seen it, I've instructed him what to do, and he has diabetes, and this is what diabetes does, and this is how it affects you, and give you everything so there's no question of what diabetes does. There's no question of why there's needles in the vehicle, so many of them. There's no question on how somebody would feel if they had high blood sugar or low blood sugar. We didn't get that. And from there, jumped right into Mr. Robbins, Terry Robbins, that state official. And he comes in and he says, you know, I was there at the accident. The first accident that involves Mr. Herring and Mr. Stanley Kimball. And Mr. Kimball was not here to testify. And Mr. Robinson said, Mr. Herring was walking around his vehicle. He saw him run the red light, saw him hit his 18-wheeler, saw Miss Payne there, pull over, concerned, see what's going on, everybody okay? And he starts talking about something's wrong with him. And in the 911 tapes, you hear him going back and forth with an exchange, doing something wrong. Did you do something wrong? Is it a crime? And him saying, sir, you just, and he stopped. He didn't say run the red light because he knew it was on the phone call with 911. He didn't want to prejudice that case in any form or fashion. But he saw what he saw. And then when he's talking to Mr. Herring and telling him, stay away from the car, that thing's about to blow up. I mean, it's smoking, radiation fluids coming out of it. It's not reasonable to think somebody could just hop in that vehicle and just drive off. But yet, his testimony was that he walked around it, he made sure the tires were okay, nothing's going to stop it from moving. He got in it and revved it up. He revved it up and you hear him on 911, sir, get out of the way, move out of the way. Get the tag. And he says he gets in his vehicle and starts driving off. There's no reason given. There's no doctor to come in and say, well, this is what occurred. It's just the individual who's a state official, who we find out later is a correctional officer, but who gives his account of what occurred. And when talking with him at the stand, what he had said at the incident location and what he had said the day it happened, it was a little bit different. He was using words like confused. Wasn't really doing much, kind of just out of it. Now, he himself even though he is working at a medical correctional facility, he doesn't have any medical training. He doesn't know what to classify, what to look for, or what to do unless somebody comes and tells him that this person has a disorder, or this person has needs, special needs, or this person needs this. But yet, he wants to give examples of confused, out of it. Whereas in his statements in the report and his interview at the precinct he was irritated. He was walking around the vehicle. He was looking into it, trying to get into it, looking to see what's in it. And then he cranks it up, and he revs it up, and he drives off. So that's how it all begins. And in the meantime, he's on the phone with 911. Miss Payne's on the phone with 911. And they're talking.
He has promised us this during his closing argument. Defense counsel is going to highlight the evidence that he thinks is important to show the state did not meet their burden of proof. Stay tuned. We're going to hit the button. We're not going to let you miss a word of these closing arguments. We'll be right back on Court TV Live.
Tonight on Closing Arguments, he was a wealthy Florida dentist. Now he faces life in prison. Charlie Adelson sentenced today for the 2014 murder of his former brother-in-law, Dan Markell. But what lies ahead for Donna Adelson, who was also charged in this murder-for-hire plot? We'll show you today's emotional victim impact statements and look ahead to what's next.
Closing Arguments with Vinnie Politan, tonight at 8/7 Central, only on Court TV.
Welcome back to Court TV Live. We are watching closing arguments in the car crash vigilante trial this afternoon. Defendant Hannah Payne took the stand yesterday to tell the jury that while she was the one who pulled the trigger, it was only because 62-year-old Kenneth Herring was grabbing for the gun as the two struggled at his car window. Let's go back in now. We're in closing arguments. The state has reserved their closing argument, so right now they go last. We're listening to defense attorney Matthew Tucker deliver his closing argument.
The one thing both of them wanted, and the one thing 911 wanted, was that tag information, the tag number. Now, you heard testimony that he'd already caused one accident, and she was looking out for the safety. Now, smartest thing in the world to do, to get behind a car from somebody who's being erratic, somebody who's leaving the scene when you got an officer telling you not to. It's not the smartest thing. But when you have good intentions in your heart, and you're trying to help somebody, and you don't think, she's never been in an environment or a situation to ever think somebody's gonna grab her and say, I got something for you, bitch. She would never contemplate that. So she gets behind him and tells 911, hey, I didn't get it, but I'm gonna go get it. And you meet Mr. Robbins. Good, go, go, go. But yet he wanted to say, I told her not to go. I told her she shouldn't chase. But you heard the 911 tape. You never once heard him say that. But it was a little bit different, a little bit more biased. And maybe media played a part, maybe memory played a part. But you can decide that yourself. You heard his testimony. And pretty much, besides coming to the scene later on, that's about all he can help. That's all he can add to this story. And he added a little of his own flavor in it. To say, you know, I did this and did not. But as we talked when we were choosing the jury, and I said the mannerisms and what you see from an individual on the stand, y'all know if they're telling the truth or not. Y'all know if somebody is not being as truthful as they can or trying to hide something. So they get Mr. Robinson down, and then you hear Miss Something. And she's the 911 custodian, operator. I'm not sure it really came out what it was, but she works at the 911 call center. And she's there and she says, hey, we take calls, we record them, We hand them to our upper people, and they make sure nothing alters. They make sure nothing changes. And that's about all she can say. And she says, hey, this 911 sounds to be in the same shape, form that we received. But she never received that 911 call. She was not the operator. So we had to just take her word for it, because there's nothing really to contradict. So she comes in here and gives an explanation of the 911, and we hear it. And you hear exactly what we were hoping you to hear. That very calm voice of Miss Payne. Ma'am, there's been an accident. I don't know if I'm supposed to call you. I don't know if somebody else has called you, but I just want to let you know there's an accident, and this is the location. And later on, as he's walking around, being irritated, grabbing, looking at his car, not answering questions, trying to find out if he's done something wrong or not, then you hear her say, ma'am, it's taking forever. What's going on here? And of course, you heard testimony that traffic was bad and that it was difficult to maneuver to where you needed to. I'm not trying to throw anybody under the bus. I'm just telling what evidence was presented. So this traffic jam and this delay of the law enforcement to come out there and write a report to find out what's going on. In this delay, there was an opportunity, a gap. And in this gap, Mr. Henry decides he's gonna go. She's gonna leave. And she said, ma'am, I'm safe, I'm in my car. I'm just gonna follow him and get that tag number for you. And you did hear her say, ma'am, we don't want you to chase, we just want you to be safe. The second time it was said, they're talking at the same time. So how one heard the other, I'm not sure, but they were talking at the same time. And they were calm. And they were speaking calm and saying, hey, and then there's radio silence. Nobody's saying, stop, you need to stop right now. Don't follow, it's dangerous, you gotta stop. No, nothing. Radio silence. So you think, okay. In their training, they're taught to say, hey, y'all don't need to chase, but get that tag, We got to do this so that things don't happen to us. So don't chase, it's our policy, but hey, get that tag. So she's following this car, not knowing, not understanding what could happen, because she's never been in she's 21 years old, never been in a situation like that. In her mind, she's a young individual trying to help out. She hasn't seen the bad sides. Heard the old phrase, no good deed goes unpunished. So she's trying to assist, and in doing so, she's hanging back enough to get the tag number. And she does, and she reports it to him. In the meantime, we heard that Mr. Kimball had already got that tag number and given it to Robinson, who gave it to 911. So in this time, Miss Payne is following. Why didn't somebody say, hey, we already got the tag? Stop. No one did. Amongst the confusion, it's still, you're safe, you're behind them, just the tag. And then she said, you need to come back to the location. And you need to stop. She goes, ma'am, I'm not gonna follow me. He's already caused one accident. We're the police. I'll just hang back here till the police gets. Now, if the traffic is as bad as they said, what's you gonna do? Pull off? Where you gonna go? You got traffic. The traffic wasn't as bad as it was perceived. Because later on you hear Mr. Williams, as he's cruising by the whole thing, puts his hand out there with the phone, tapes it on. Didn't look like he was concerned about traffic or anything. When you see the pictures of where the car finally ended up, you see there's a big gap that somebody could have gone around to the right. Mr. Williams is actually going to the left, just videotape it. So you try to take everything you hear and try to visually picture it. And you've heard up to now that he got diabetes, or whatever that's worth. Then you heard, well, you know, it was irritable, he was walking around crazy, he wasn't listening to me. He sure as hell wasn't listening to me. But he's confused, kind of out. How that changed, I do not know. How those stories changed. But you, the decider of fact, can take what you've heard and take what you listened to and saw, and you can decide that for yourself. And that's what I wanted. I wanted all the evidence out here so y'all could decide. So after something comes up there with the 911, then they bring McCraney in. And she sits down. She's got a good story she's telling it. She's wound up. She's talking about, yeah, I saw it. It was crazy. She jumped in the window. Now, literally, we don't know. There's no way she could have jumped in the window. But you try to extract from what they say. As we said, every time there's a story, there's a little bit of truth in it. A little bit of truth. So maybe the part that she was in the window is when she's being pulled in the window. Maybe the part that she jumps when she's pulling back and getting pulled in. We don't know. But you heard the testimony the same I did. And you'll get to decide out of that, was it really believable that she came up and said the vehicle stopped like an inch away from it. Vehicle stopped like an inch away from a vehicle. It appears they hit. But it was like an inch, so give or take. And then she said she pulled up like a foot, but she was behind the Jeep at that time. And she couldn't see what was going on, but she heard a gunshot. So we got a person jumping in the window, somehow, some way, or whatever, and a gunshot. So we know there's a gunshot. And a lot of people congregate and start going back and forth on who did what, how they did what. And that ends up being the testimony from McCraney.
All right, we do need to take one of those breaks, but I have to say, I think we finally heard the theme. I wanted all of the evidence out there so you, jury, can decide what happened. Stay tuned. We're going to hit the pause button. We'll be right back.
Tonight on Closing Arguments, he was a wealthy Florida dentist. Now he faces life in prison. Charlie Adelson sentenced today for the 2014 murder of his former brother-in-law, Dan Markell. But what lies ahead for Donna Adelson, who was also charged in this murder-for-hire plot? We'll show you today's emotional victim impact statements and look ahead to what's next.
Closing Arguments with Vinny Politan tonight at 8/7 Central, only on Court TV.
Welcome back to Court TV Live. I'm Ashley Wilcott. Thank you for joining us. Let's get back into court in Georgia versus Hannah Payne. The closing arguments have started. We are bringing them to you in their entirety. And remember, the state reserved, which means they go last with their entire closing argument. So right now, it is Hannah Payne's attorney speaking to the jury.
Come in and say, hey, I just did my job. I went to the jail, I swabbed her, I'm out of here. Short and sweet. How you going to dispute something like that? If it was done properly, let's get them on the stand and get them out. So they swabbed. They got DNA. And then you have Ashley Hoss. She comes in and she says, you know what? I do fingerprinting. I do that job that everybody always wants to hear. You hear in these shows and movies. Out there at dust, I get the fingerprints, we take the laminate, we look at the genes, the alleles, we look at everything we can. Then we compare. And we compare. But the one thing they didn't compare is any kind of fingerprints or any kind of DNA on the trigger of the gun. That seems to be what it was at dispute. The trigger, who pulled the trigger, what happened with the trigger. But nobody tested it. But they did test the gun for DNA. And they came in and said, there's DNA. There's a dominant DNA, and there's a minor DNA. And we all sit here and we learn something new about DNA as we're listening. And they said the dominant's going to be more of one person's DNA than the other. And probably no surprise to you, there's more DNA from Miss Payne on her gun than there is from somebody else. So, but they did say there were 2 males' DNA on this gun. And it was on the slide, the top of the gun, where the bullet would eject, or the shell would eject once it's been discharged. There's male DNA on it. There's 2 males. So as you hear, as we go further, you hear that there was a hand in the struggle between Mr. Herring and Miss Payne. And his hand got on top of that slide. And they were fighting back and forth. She had a good grip sometimes, she didn't have a good grip sometimes. But there was male DNA. So you can look at it, and as they talk about circumstantial evidence, you conclude that it was Mr. Herring. But who's this other male DNA? Where'd this other male come from? And you heard her say she took the gun off, handed it to Officer Ritchie, who had no gloves on. He was hanging on that gun for a while. He had to, until he could go put it in evidence. So there's your other male DNA. So we're slowly building up to see evidence that may be helpful and might not be helpful. And as we continue, then you hear from Emily Curran. And she's talking about how she looks at the fingerprints, the palm prints, evidence collected, DNA, all that stuff collected. She takes it. She works with the lab. She gets things going. And she starts talking about the cartridge and the container. And as I jumped in there and finally said, we're just talking about a magazine. I mean, we're talking about a clip and bullets, right? I mean, you know, sometimes when we're dealing with the doctors and the GBI and everybody else, they're a little smart enough, they talk a little bit higher than us. But I wanted to make sure we knew what she was talking about. And that was the clip and the bullets in it. And she kind of said there was some that would be enough to test, and there was some of the stuff that wouldn't be enough to test. But why would you want to test the bullets and the clip? It's her gun. Who else is putting bullets and clip in her gun? But they never once mentioned about testing the trigger. We got DNA on the slide, that's good. But we don't know what's on the trigger. And maybe it was because they didn't get a big enough sample, or somebody didn't do their job right and get a sufficient sample for them to test. But we do know one thing. It wasn't tested. So we don't know who's the dominant, who's the minor, or who's just on the trigger. And from there, the witness, Miss Rosser. And Miss Rosser got up and she started talking about what she perceived happened. And I believe I showed her where everybody else was using this map to show where the roads are, where it all happened. And I'm not sure, maybe it was her parents. I mean, some people don't, recognize markers or where they were. But she started saying something was going on up here. Everybody else saying it's going on here. But she says it's going on up top. And she says that she was in a car by herself. She was looking at the ceiling. But she saw Miss Payne run to the car.
He raised a really good question. Why wouldn't they test for DNA on the trigger of the gun that was used to shoot the victim? Let's take a break here. When we come back, we'll get you back inside court. Hannah Payne witnessed a hit and run.
Now a man is dead, and prosecutors are accusing her of taking the law into her own hands.
Either she or he fired the trigger in some kind of a struggle over the pistol.
The officers generally ask who fired a shot, and she makes statements to both of them admitting it was her.
Bizarre set of circumstances.
But will the jury see her actions as murder?
The car crash vigilante trial. Live coverage today on Court TV.
We are bringing you the car crash vigilante trial out of Georgia. The defendant, Hannah Payne, is accused of shooting and killing a hit-and-run driver after witnessing him flee the scene of an accident back in 2019. Before we go back into court, let's bring back in trial attorney Kelly Hyman. 2 questions. What do you think, number one, of the fact that the state reserved its closing, meaning they want to do all of their closing after the defense finishes?
It's a strategy decision, and it's a very smart one as well, because when they go in front of the juries, they can poke holes at what the defense has done and show why they believe that they proved all elements of the crime and therefore why she should be convicted of the crime. It's a very smart move by the prosecutor.
I absolutely agree with you. It's a smart move, especially when she's claiming self-defense. All right, second question. We need to get back into court. But how do you think her attorney is doing so far with his closing argument?
He is poking holes at the arguments that was brought forth by the prosecution, but I don't know if that's going to have a lasting effect. Also, when he talks about, yes, it's reasonable doubt, but to the jurors, what does that mean? Break it down for them. Break down the elements. I would have liked to hear him define what beyond a reasonable doubt really meant.
Oh, that's a great point. And there isn't the same fire and brimstone that we sometimes see in closing argument where you're trying to convince the jury, this is why my side is right. This is what you have to believe. All right, thank you so much, Kelly Hyman, for joining me this hour. Always great to have you on. We want to get you back into court. And again, we've been hitting the pause button to bring you these closing arguments in their entirety. Let's get you back in. Again, Hannah Payne's attorney making his argument.
The right pink hoodie. If somebody's trying to conceal themselves, they're not going to put the right hoodie on. But she never once mentioned that her shirt was ripped and exposing herself. But she saw it all. She saw what happened, and she could testify. And her statement was, a white male came out of a vehicle that drove up behind him and then drove off once he saw the gun. If somebody's going to interject themselves in a situation like that, I don't think they'd wait for somebody to turn around. And I think they would have stopped it, or grabbing it, or stopping it, or somehow thwarting what was going on. But once again, I wasn't there. I can only go off what they're saying. And she said, you know what? This white guy walked in, he had somebody else in the car. He saw what was going on, she turned around, never pointed the gun at him, never got aggressive to him. But he said, oh, that's enough for me, I'm out of here. This ain't worth it. So I asked her about the traffic. And she said, oh, it was clear. She said, I was in the turning lane up here. I can see everything clear. You're in a turning lane on a busy highway. 2, that traffic is miserable, but she can see clear. So really, how bad was that traffic? Now, I know that the officer said he was there stopping people from going down 285, and everybody here knows how irritating it is when you need to get on the highway and they're stopping. You got to reroute you. So maybe there was some traffic there, but not enough to block her vision. Where she said she was right there, kind of side to side, looking at it. I think she said 10 yards. 10 yards. I don't know. I usually like to hear feet, but everybody has their preference. 10 yards from it. And she saw her gun out, holding him at gunpoint, and blow. She didn't see it. She heard. But notice, blow. So did it happen in the car? Did it happen out of the car? From her testimony, I don't think you really understand, or I don't think you get a good impression of what happened and where it happened. But that's for y'all to decide. That's for y'all to take her testimony and compare it to the other witnesses. Because remember, they've had 4 years to get these witnesses together. And I asked the witnesses, did y'all talk to the media? I mean, why the difference in the story? Did you talk to somebody else? You talk to the media? You talk to the detectives? No. Yeah, I talked to the media. Yes, I talked to the detectives. And yes, I talked to Bonnie. And they're here giving testimony that's different from what they initially gave. And you, as the decider of fact, has got to decipher from the story that you heard from the first account, the story you heard from the second account. My opinion is, when you go back and you talk about what you heard, they're not going to measure it. It's not going to be something that you can see or put together or say, yeah, this is kind of close, it's kind of not close. So, I think we took a break there and we went on to day number 2. And day number 2, I believe it was the forensic examiner. And she was here. She's a tough cookie. She turned to you when it was asked questions from the state. She turned to you and was talking, friendly, explaining everything. And I kept asking her. Your report said the bullet went right to left. There's a slight downward angle. Right to left. That means if he was in the car and the gun was outside the car, it'd have gone left to right. Well, it depends on what the position of the driver was. When she wrote that report, there was a position in her head that she had that driver sitting at when she said it was right to left. And I asked as many times as I could before I was stopped to try to get an answer out of what position was that driver in. I don't think we ever heard it, but we all know that when she wrote that report, there was a position he was in that she came to the conclusion the bullet went right to left, a slight slope down. I asked her to draw me a picture of it. Show me if it goes in the body, because in her reports it talks about organs that it hit. She didn't want to run it. She didn't want to draw a line. She said, there's a dot here, there's a dot there. That's all I'm doing. So, usually you're dealing with forensic examiners. They're going to tell you everything that's going on. And she said, well, we can't really talk about diabetes because the body, when it begins, rigor mortis begins and the process goes and the deceased is there, it's going to eat up that sugar immediately. So we can't say one way or the other. But what really is the relevance? I mean, you know, no one's coming here to testify what diabetes does or how it would affect you. It's all speculation. And she goes and says, no. And then I ask about the drug test. And she says, well, it's comprehensive. I understand comprehensive. Y'all understand comprehensive. But there were 5 specific drugs that were singled out. And in the report, it says, out of those 5 drugs, and it says specifically those 5 drugs, it was negative. Cocaine, opiates, benzo, nothing about amphetamines, nothing about other, as she said, common addictive drugs. But it's a comprehensive test. And we didn't get into that report about, was it a hair follicle? Was it blood? Was it urine? What was tested? How was it tested? We never got into it. So, as we say, it's comprehensive. That should be enough. That should be enough for y'all to believe there was no drugs in the system. The test was done 2 days after. So, she quickly gets off the stand, and she goes. And then we have Cameron Williams. I'm sorry, Cameron Williams. Nice guy, seem personable. He gets up here and he talks about how, hey man, I videotaped it. And I'm watching it, and I see a struggle. And as they're struggling, all of a sudden I hear a big, and it's a gunshot. And this gunshot goes off, and he goes, oh, hell no.
More closing arguments out of the car crash vigilante trial right after the break. Stay with us. You're watching Court TV Live, your front row seat to justice.